Hey guys, it's Jess with Virtually Visual, and today we're going to be talking about knit frogs. Have you ever thought about it? Because if not, you should be. They are so freaking cute. Here are some examples on the screen. So now that you are in this obsession with me, we're going to be recreating one of those digitally today in Cinema 4D with Mixamo and Marvelous Designer for the outfit. That's kind of optional, but for the most part we'll be in Cinema 4D and Mixamo. And yeah, let's just dive right in, folks. For the first step in this process, we're going to be focusing on the design of our character. And we're going to be doing this actually with a mix of AI and some tweaking in Cinema 4D. And you could go a couple different ways with this. If you pay for Midjourney, you could use Midjourney. It's one of the best AI programs out there, I would say. But you could also use Krea, which is free. And I tried this with some frogs earlier. You just have to make an account to do this. But yeah, I find that any other AI isn't as strong with their generations. The kind of nice thing about Krea is you could use shapes to kind of build the structure you were going for, and then it sets it up right here for you. So that is really handy. And this Krea is free. It is nice that we can kind of build what we're looking for, and then it sets it up for us. So let's say maybe we want to use this image. I'll just do this one for the sake of keeping consistent with what you guys might be using. What you're going to do now is go to Meshy AI. So it's just meshy.ai, and this is the website. I think I had to sign up to get started. Okay, so once you get in here, this is what Meshy AI looks like, and we're going to want to go to the left tab that says Image to 3D. And this was my model. Let's see if I click on this, you'll see it. Okay, so you can see this was the image I had from Midjourney that I showed you that I used, and from the front, looks great. But the AI interpreted the face as needing to be this long, which is obviously an issue. And other than that though, I thought that it did a pretty good job of capturing the details of the image. So that was the base that I used, but we're gonna go back because we're gonna create a new one. So I'm going to drag in the image we just created with Krea. Once you get that image in there, you're just going to hit generate, and it's going to take 5 credits. And I believe for free, I'm not sure how many credits I started with. Maybe it was 500 when I created my free account. It shows you the little loading bar, which is kind of nice. And I believe it took like 5 to 10 minutes to generate that model. So we'll just wait until that's done, and I'll be back in a moment. Okay, so it looks like we got our model. And from the front, looks pretty great. From the side, he is a little hunched over, and he's got a tail. So I think the AI thought he was a dinosaur. So we're gonna probably need to fix that. But for the most part, I'd say this is a pretty great model. Let's download the model, and we'll move on to the actual tweaking inside of Cinema 4D. So to download also, you just want to go to this little download icon, choose what type of model you want. I'm gonna do an OBJ. And I'm just gonna hit download, and it takes 20 credits. So I'm gonna say yes, 20 to download. And again, I probably for free could do one more model after this before I'd need to probably start paying. So I'm happy with this. Let's close Meshy, and we'll open our file inside of Cinema 4D. Okay, so I'm gonna make a new null, and I'm just gonna call this old, and I'm gonna turn it off. Hold Alt and double click these dots, and it will disable that. Nothing in there will be viewed in the viewport, in case you are a beginner and you're not sure what that's supposed to be. So I'm gonna click on our mesh, I'm gonna hold down Control and drag that in there, so we have a copy just in case. Now on the model, if we hit NB on our keyboard, we can see this is a pretty dense mesh, which is good for our situation of needing to kind of sculpt and fix some of these details. So first thing I'm going to change is the eyes. I'm going to try to get rid of those, or just flatten those out on the head so we just have a head shape. So I'm going to go into the Sculpt tab, and I believe it's this, yeah, this smooth brush. And the size is controlled over here, so feel free to mess with that. I'm gonna make sure we're on our mesh, and I'm gonna just try with my mouse. I don't have a tablet. I'm just gonna try smoothing out some of these things. So use Alt and your left mouse button to kind of click around and change the angle. This will probably take some time. So next I wanna focus on the nose. And I think what I'm going to do is flatten. So this is 2 tools down from smooth. And so I'm just gonna start going in the front here. Let's say that's kind of the look you're going for the head. Now I'm going to remove the tail. I'm gonna try to flatten it, but I'm not sure how well this is gonna work. Okay, fixed the tail. So now we might want to deal with how he's hunched over. I think to fix that, I'm gonna go back to standard view. We've got our mesh, and I'm going to go into the face view. And I'm going to find this ironing brush, and I'm going to hold down on that and click magnet. And I'm going to take this way up, I think. This probably is not the way to do this. Okay. And then I'm gonna take the brush down and I'm gonna bring his face out a little. Back to your object view, and you should be left with something like this. So this is the base for our model, and looks scary now maybe, but we're gonna worry about that later. But for the moment we can just delete our material that's on there. And you could actually delete the UV tag as well. Let's add another digit to the hands for right now. We'll just call this body. Let's make a copy by control dragging and hiding the first one. And then go back into face view, go to this first brush, hold down and select the lasso selection. And I am just going to select the polygons of one of these thumbs. Also make sure visible only is not checked. And then you're gonna, after you've selected this, you're gonna go up to select, hit invert, and then you're gonna hit delete. And then let's close this polygon hole with this option here and just find one of the edges and select, and it will close it. And we'll just call this finger, and then go back into object view. And let's go to tools, axis, and then hit center axis 2, and it will put that in the center of our object. So now if we bring our body back in here, zoom out, and let's rotate this new finger and position it in place. Okay, even though they're weird, let's just say that that's good. And then let's duplicate that onto the other hand and use the mirror or the symmetry modifier here. Let's see. Yep. So that worked out kind of nice. It's not perfect, but it will do. And let's just right click on these and select connect objects plus delete. Put that inside the body so it's parented to the body. And then what we're going to do is let's fix some of the shaping before we add some eyes. So let's hit NB on our keyboard again so we can see the mesh. And we're gonna add a volume builder to our scene, a volume mesher, and a remesh. And drag the volume builder into the volume mesher and drag the body into the volume builder. So it'll be too high of a voxel size at first, so try out 1. And I think that's almost good, but we're losing something on the feet there, so let's go up to like 0.5. And let's actually also add in a dilate and a road, and we'll take this down a little. And then let's do maybe smooth. Take that down too. Maybe we want to take the voxel size down even more to like 0.3. And then we're gonna let's set the remesh down to like 30% and turn adaptiveness down, and then drag our volume mesher inside that and wait for that to calculate. It'll do so down here. So that's our body right now, but let's also check symmetry along the X-axis. And that will kind of sort out a bit of a mirrored look. So much better topology than we had before. The weirdness in the feet is strange. Actually, maybe we can just rotate him. Let's try that. Rotate. Okay, rotate 180. And now if we check symmetry long X, I wonder if it'll choose the other side. Yep. Okay, good. That's what I wanted. So yeah, adorable. I love it. Okay, so technically this is the correct side. Let's right click on our remesh, connect objects and delete. And we'll call this body. And drag a copy into old just to be safe. And then let's rotate this guy 180 degrees. So this is our base for our froggy boy. Okay, so let's add some eyes, because we're gonna need those to be animated as well when we bring him into Mixamo. So you're gonna grab some spheres, bring this way down, let's try 10. Still too big, let's try 5. And then drag one of those into position. Front a little, right. And then drag another symmetry modifier and drag that in. So now you've got some eyes, and you can kind of drag the first one to where you want it. So changing the sphere to 4, and then, yeah, I think that looks pretty decent. Let's connect these and delete. And I'm going to use the magnet tool again on the body. Let's rename the symmetry to eyes. Let's drag the eyes parented to our body. And then we'll drag this into a null. We actually want to position his arm so he's in like a T pose. Let's click on our eyes, go to face view. Hit Control A or Command A so that you select all the faces, and we're going to go to select, store selection, so we have just those. And then what you're going to do is you're going to click on the body, and you're going to right click and do current state to object, and then you're going to connect those. So this is going to be our updated base model. You can put the old one in the old folder, and we need to do that select state so that we have one mesh, but it has the eyes as a separate selection so that we can apply a different material later. This is also where we want to add our, like if you want the center of the frog to be a different color, you'll want to select the polygons you want, and then store those as a selection too. So let's do that right now. Again, just go to select, store selection, and I'm going to name this and the other selection respectively. So now that we have our selections, what you're going to want to do is upload our character to Mixamo. So just go to File, Export Selected Objects As, and Save as a Wavefront OBJ. So I'm just going to select my character file. Okay, so I have uploaded the new character. Also, you will notice there is still some deformations happening over by the shoulders. I haven't quite figured out how to fix this. It's definitely a Mixamo issue where they're just assuming where the shoulder joints are and the length of the torso. But if you want the same animation I used, it's the second male waving one, and I just played with the energy and the overdrive. This one's pretty safe because I'm also keeping in mind space around the arms if we want to make clothing. So kind of pay attention to that. If you have any intersections, you're going to have issues. He's so cute. But let's just say I'm happy with this animation. We're going to click download, and you can leave all this and download. And then we're also going to click X on this animation. We want him back in T-pose because we're going to download this as well because we need the rig that it puts in from Mixamo. So click download on this as well and just download again. So back in our main file, we're going to go to File, Merge Objects, and we're going to find our happy dancing kind of animation and the T-pose and bring those both in. And I'm also going to put both of these in nulls so that I remember. So let's hide our original mesh for now. And let's hide our T-pose. So we're just looking at the happy one. And you might need to extend your frames to match. I'm just gonna put 300 to be safe. Okay, great. On the happy now we're gonna go to animate. We're gonna go add motion clip. And you can leave this as is, hit OK. And it's gonna do its thing. Then we're gonna hide this for now. And we're gonna reveal our T-pose. And we're gonna do the same thing, animate, add motion clip, except instead of just doing one frame, because even though this is still, we're gonna need to blend between the two so that when we make clothing, there's some time for the clothing to adjust before the animation starts. So I'm gonna give this like 30 frames. So start at 0, end at 30, hit OK. We're gonna go to animate, show tracks. We'll just click show position curves, and then in view, we're gonna hit motion mode. Okay, drag our happy motion clip over here. These two are our motion clips. Now we're gonna drag this, and this is our T-pose, and this is our happy. And we're gonna blend the two by just dragging the happy one over top. So I'm gonna set it maybe like at frame 10, and let's see, this should animate. So you may notice there's that green, and it fades in. And you can see the mesh as well, the T-pose mesh blends. So if we hide our happy now, and we do this again, you can see the mesh slowly turns into the animation. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring our character into Marvelous Designer to make some clothing. So we're gonna go to File, Export Selected Objects As, and we're gonna hit Alembic, and then do the desired frames you want. I think I'm gonna do like 180, and I'm gonna hit OK, and I'm just gonna save this out. Okay, inside of Marvelous, we're gonna go to File, Import, and we're gonna add our Alembic. Just hit OK. And it might be set on a different measurement. I think I've been using DAZ Studio centimeters. Hit OK. And this is our little froggy guy. And hopefully when you go and you hit play, your animation should play. And you may have noticed this looks way faster in Marvelous, and I could not figure this out yesterday when I was doing this on my actual animation. And I actually went in and played with the gravity and the time scale settings in the preferences here in Marvelous. But for whatever reason, it just shows up fast when you do the normal play. As far as our clothing, I'm gonna just do kind of what I did yesterday, which is adding a sweater. So it's gonna be like a crew neck, and let's just get right ahead. So I'm gonna go to our Polygon H tool, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm just gonna go kind of around where his neckline would be. And I'm gonna mark out the general shape that I am going for. So that'll be the front, and then if we rotate and we Command C, this will be for the back. Let's get it kind of in place. Move this up too, because when you simulate, they're gonna fall a little bit. And let's just sew these two in place to start. We're gonna go up to our segment sewing. Oh, actually, let me move this up top. So we're gonna go to our segment sewing, and we're gonna just sew these sides together, as well as these little pieces. And you're not gonna sew this because this is the armhole where the sleeves are gonna get attached. So let's just hit play. Perfect. Our little guy has a little tank top. Also, you may notice the back of the shirt is gray. That is because the normals are flipped around. So you want to right click and you go flip normal, and then it is correct. So now we need to add the sleeves. Let's do that. Let's go back to segment sewing. We're going to sew this piece here. And this one actually will be on this side now because we flipped the back of the shirt. So it can get confusing, but play with the simulations and see if things are glitching and all weird. Because if they are, you might need to undo your sewing and redo again. But I'm also seeing that this sleeve is a little bit too skinny, so I'm going to change that. And then we're just going to sew these two sides together. And you want to wait to do this till after you've done the shoulder. Okay. And this might be too A-shaped now, so I'm gonna drag this in a little. And now we want to copy this over to the other arm. So I'm gonna Command C, and then I'm gonna go right click and mirror paste. And it should be this similar shape, and it goes in the same spot, but we do have to sew it yet. So let's do that to the correct spots. And there we go. So now I'm gonna add some internal lines and make some cuts. So the internal line tool, let's go this tool next to the polygon shape. And now we're gonna select all of these internal lines. We're gonna right click and hit cut and sew, and voila. And now when we hit play, there should be some slight seams here. So, and it'll be sewn already to the other parts of the shirt. So this is kind of nice because now we can do the cuffs, for example. If we bring the edges of these in, it'll look more like how an actual sweatshirt does, where the sleeves bunch at the edges. So that looks great. And we don't need to do anything for the collars, but we do need to add one more internal line for the bottom of the crew neck. So let's do that. Offset as internal line. Let's set this maybe to like 20. Now, like we did before, cut and sew. And then let's also shorten these a bit. So we have the basis of our little crew neck. So a couple more things. First of all, let us highlight all of our patterns, and let's change the particle distance to 15. I think that's what I used in my final. And while these are selected, we're also going to right click and hit layer clone over. And this is just going to add a second layer of all the same stuff, but it'll just make our sweatshirt look a little bit thicker, and it just seems a little bit more realistic. So after that though, one thing I do want to add is a little pocket to the front of the sweater. So I'm going to go back to our polygon tool. I'm just going to kind of shape a little pocket. And I'm actually going to clone this as an internal shape. But once you've got the pattern where you want, right click, and we're going to do clone as pattern with sewing. So find your piece. It's probably going to be way over to the side. Just kind of move this into a closer position so your simulation doesn't get super wonky. Then just hit play. And what it's doing is sewing the whole thing to the sweater, and we actually don't want that. We want a couple spots to not be sewn, like right here and right here, because that would be kind of where hands would go into the pockets. And as a final step there, we're also going to do a clone of this pocket, so that's also thick. And then for the pocket, we also need to change the particle distance because those were new and they didn't get added. So final thing there. And now we are ready for colors. Let's change the fabric settings to what we want. So go all the way down to physical property, and we're going to select, I think I did like a Sherpa, just so it was thick. So I did this Cuddle Fleece one, and let's change the main color to, we'll do kind of the reverse of what I did in mine, go for more of like a teal for the base, and then we'll make a copy of this fabric and we'll change it to, how about it like a pale yellow? And then we're going to select all the pieces where we want that pale yellow to be. So the pockets, the cuffs, and I think the collar of the shirt, and we're going to go fabric 1, the copy. Just, it'll show up here, so it looks good. And maybe we'll do the bottom color too, or the bottom cuff. And you might also want to save a copy, because if you have to make any changes, it's going to mess with your animation. So sometimes to be safe, I'll make a copy of my scene, because I haven't for the life of me figured out why Marvelous really messes things up if you mess with the UVs and then you try to animate again. So do what you got to do. Let's just see what the animation looks like when we hit record. How cute is that? I might want some more sleeve action going on here, so let's go back to the start. I'm ready to like finalize this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select all of our patterns and I'm gonna hit this little drop down and go to UV editor. I'm gonna right click and hit fit UV to 1 and hit OK. And it's got stuff stacked right now. So I'm gonna move this and then I'm gonna upscale this a little. Let's just see if we can fit all this. So let's go back to our 2D pattern window and now we can hit record. Okay, I love it. So actually, let's preview it. Go to start, hit play. Cool. So I like it. If you feel like your fabric is moving too lightly, like the gravity isn't high enough, you can adjust the gravity in the simulation settings. Otherwise, I like this. Let's go back to the start. Let's save it to be safe. Let's select our patterns. We're gonna go to File, Export Alembic, and pick a place. And there's a couple things to note. We want to do thick, and that's going to gray out these other options. And you can leave the rest as is, hit OK. So let's go to File, Export, and also do OBJ selected. And for this one, we're also going to do thick, but you can leave all these, except make sure you do save textures with zip file, just kind of saves time. Hit OK. Now we can close Marvelous and bring those into Cinema 4D. Okay, so we're back in our Cinema 4D file. We can hide our T-pose now, and maybe we want to make a new null and just say animated and put those in there and then move it to the old folder to be safe. But keep your body mesh that you made with the selections in here. Let's just import our clothing. Okay, and it's going to overlay them by default. So what you want to do is you want to highlight the selections and the materials on the OBJ version, and you're going to drag that onto the Alembic version. And you can just delete the OBJ now, and our Alembic will now have the textures and the movement. And if you have any crinkle spots, don't worry, because with Redshift, with the render tag that you can add on, it will get rid of that in the render. So let's reveal our... Actually, we do want our animated T-pose version of our character. Let's unhide that. And both should line up now perfectly. And remember, when we exported our guy, we ended it at 180, I think it was. So we might as well end our timeline there too. So we're here and we have our T-pose character. And while we're here, we have our body that has the eyes and the body center selections. Highlight those and drag those, holding control onto our T-pose character. Let's actually drag it onto the mesh of the T-pose animated body. Let's call this animation so we don't get confused. Actually, we'll call it character. And we'll call the other one clothing. Cool. So we can hide the old mesh and we should be prepared to kind of set up the final things. So let's just preview this. Looks great. And I'm gonna throw a backdrop in here. And I'm also gonna add a camera now. Set the focal length to 85, zoom out a little. And then I'm going to change my render settings to a more vertical format. Let's take a little gander at what we're working with. So let's go to Redshift render view, drag this over, zoom out. If we hit play, this is what we've got. So we do also need a good dome light. Let's pull that in. And in our asset browser, if we go to HDRIs, I think the one that I used in my actual render was this cloudy, slightly sunny one. So just drag that to the path of your dome light, and it'll take a second, but then it'll load in and our IPR will refresh. Perfect. I've also noticed that he's floating a little, so I'm going to move our backdrop up to like there. Beautiful. Save. And now it's time to add our materials. So this is like the final step. So let's add my favorite part, the materials and the fur. To start, I'm going to create a couple of materials. Actually, 3 of them. One will be green, one will be white, and one will be eyes. And that's just, you could do body, center, and eyes, but I'm doing green and white because that was kind of what I had in my render. You could do any color for the frog, you know, this is totally up to you. For the eyes, I know I want those to be almost black. I'm going to take the metalness up to like 0.2, and everything else we can keep the same. And we're going to drag that onto our character, but we're going to change the selection to eyes. And it'll just be on the eye portion that we saved a selection tag to earlier. Then for the white portion, let's change this. I think I didn't do straight up white. I did like a creamy color. We're going to drag that onto our character, and we're going to do body center for the selection. And it'll do that part. And then final, I'm going to do green or whatever color you're picking for your knit frog. And drag that on, and actually drag this before the first 2 materials, and it will just apply it to the remaining portion of the body. So this might be a little bit too dark. Let me take this up. Much better, but still very boring. How do we fix this? So first of all, we need a knit texture as the base. So let's double click into our green material, drag this window over. I used an image texture that I found online. I'm going to link it in the description so that you can download this too. It is a seamless knit texture. It's not perfect and not exactly what I was looking for, but it does the job. And you're going to drag this into the node editor, just hit no. And we are going to add a bump node. Bump map, drag this into bump map, drag the out color of the image into input, and it should show up right away. So you can see it's pretty big. Actually, before we add this bump map, I forgot a crucial step, which we're going to need to do, and it's a little tedious, but it's important, and that is UV mapping. And I hate this. This is probably the worst thing in the process, but it changes the game for how the knit shows up. So what you're gonna need to do to make this easy, let's duplicate our character. Let's hide the other stuff. Let's go to the start frame. Let's hide the clothing too. And we're going to delete the skin. And you can delete the weights. To be honest, you can delete materials too. We're going to go into the edge mode, and we're going to select some areas for our UV unmapping to have seams. So the way I like to think that is, you're going to slice portions. If you slice portions in half, you want them to lay flat on a table. So like we would make a cut here around the shoulder, or maybe a cut here around the wrist, and we would want another line to divide this like arm portion so that that piece could unwrap and lay down on like a table. Like picture if you were wrapping this guy in wrapping paper, there would be spots where you have to cut so that you could wrap it perfectly. So that's kind of what we're doing. So I'm going to go down to path selection, which is usually is loop selection. Go down to path selection, and I'm going to select some areas. So I'm going to speed this up. So I have finally completed all the selections I needed. Feel free to follow this as just a kind of guide. This isn't perfect. Obviously, like areas by the armpits are a little bit different for this. Yeah, here's a good look. Feel free to copy, whatever you gotta do. So I've saved this as a selection by going to going to select, store selection, and it saves it as an edge selection. So I'm gonna just name this seams. And then I'm gonna delete the UV tag that's already on here. Keep this selected, and we're gonna go to UV edit. And then we're gonna just go set UV unwrap, I think. And there we go. It kind of handles the pieces for us. Align UV island. So at least we can get those straight, even if it's not perfect. So yeah, I think just keeping them straight is kind of the important thing. Save and go back, and if we drag this new map back onto our animated one, let's check that out. I feel like in real knit frogs that I've seen online, the knit is going down the arms like that. So that's where it's really important, where the direction of your UVs are facing, because it will affect how the material is showing up. And the UVs are super important on this character just because we were dealing with a knit looking texture. And yeah, that was just vital. So takes a lot of time. I hate doing UVs. I never really do it unless it's something like this, but it's worth it in the end. So that is the knit. I'm just gonna apply that exact same bump map to the white section. And then we can finally add some magical fur. Also, make sure you change the roughness all the way up on the reflection value for both of these materials. Okay, make sure you're saving. And then we are going to add our fur. And the nice thing is we have some selections already made for the body center. So we could just also invert that and we'll be selecting the rest of the body. So let's actually do that now. If we pause our IPR, we can go and select our body center and make sure you're in face view. And then if we go to select and invert, and then if we also click on our eye selection and hit deselect, we'll have selected the outer portion of the body. So let's store that final selection. We'll just call it body since it's a main one. And I'm gonna drag this over by our other selections. And now we can start adding hair. So let's put our Redshift render viewer on, and while this is selected, let's go to simulate, hair objects, add hair. It's gonna be crazy. And we're gonna take maybe our, let's take our roots down to like 2000. And for the guides, the root count, and let's change the length. I think I had mine down to like 2. Yeah, that seems about right. And the hairs we can take down for now. Let's try just 5,000. And the segments we can up to like 30 for the hairs, and for the guides, let's change this to 15. And it still doesn't look great. I'm gonna add a crop on here so that we can kind of zoom in to how these hairs are looking. And it doesn't look great because the hairs are set to be way too thick right now. So that's part of it. Let's double click on our hair material, go to thickness, and we're gonna set this down to like 0.05 is what we want. And yeah, you could add some variation if you want. I don't think I did in mine. Let's change the color while we're here to the roots. We want kind of dark green, and the tips will have a little bit brighter, something like that. And then now we're gonna add a bunch of stuff. We're gonna add kink, curl wave, frizz, and maybe twist and bend. So just really crazy. And you can already see we've kind of started getting what we're looking for. And now it's kind of just a matter of playing with how many hairs you have. So I do think in the end I did have this back to like 50,000 or 30,000. And yeah, that instantly does a ton for you. So that is really great. Or what you can do is set this down to maybe like 20,000 or 10,000 and then go to this cloning tab. This helps a lot too. Set the roots to like 1 and 1 and the variation to like 50. And then we want to set maybe like 5 clones. Let's see what that does. So that adds some good variation there. And they look much more randomized. So that's what we like, but let's up the, oh, I just realized I set the hairs to 2,000 instead of 20,000. That will affect it. So that might be too much. Let's go back down to 10,000. I think 10,000 is a good number. And let's see here. I think we can take the thickness down a little bit more again, maybe back to 0.03 for both the roots and the tip. And then the final step for making this fuzz look extra realistic is throwing the redshift hair material on top of this as well. So you can find that by going to create materials and it's principled hair. And you drag this onto your hair as well. And when you click on this hair material, first of all, if your hair is going to change color to like this red, to fix that, go to albedo mix, turn this all the way up. That'll give you the color you had on your other hair material. And then I also like to go to this stray hair color, and I'm going to change this to like my more of a beigey green. And that's this stray hair fraction color. We're going to take that all the way up. And I'm going to turn on glint, size, and variation seed. And then roughness, let's take roughness almost all the way up. And just mess with these settings as you'd like. Maybe we want this a little bit brighter. Maybe not. And then play with the roughness a lot. I think that does a whole lot. But yeah, that's the fuzz. And I'm going to change the hair material names here. So this will be green hair. And we'll leave the redshift one. And we're going to do the same thing with adding hair onto the white section. But before we do that, one thing I want to note is that you don't want your dynamics to actually have the hair moving. And I didn't realize this for a long time, but when I first set up hair and then would hit play, the hair would fall because of gravity. But if you have like a fuzzy character, that doesn't really happen. So the hairs should stay in place. The way to fix that is you go to this properties tab and it's this rest mix and rest hold. Let's set this to 100 and 100%. And then when the animation happens, the hairs won't be affected by gravity. So just super nice. And I'm thinking the hairs might be a little long right now, so I'm going to change the length to 1.5. So let's see what that does. Cool. I like that. You could even change, we could up the hairs maybe to 15,000. And then we're going to add some hair onto the white section of the frog as well. So go to our body center. Let's select that. And then also go to simulate hair objects, add hair. And guides we can take down to maybe 1500, length to 1.5 like we have before. Up the segments to 15 here and 230 on the hair section. And the hairs we can take down to 10,000 or the same number that you have for your main hair. And let's delete the hair material there, and we're just going to duplicate them from the old hair for now. But what we actually want to do is make a copy. So let's delete this one that was created. We'll make a copy of the green hair, call this white hair. And this is where we can change the color. So let's make this more of a gray, bright, creamy kind of color. And then same for the brighter parts. Okay, and make sure you also make a copy of the redshift principled hair material and set the fraction to like the stray hair fraction color to more of a cream tone as well. And then apply that in place of the other one. So now we have a very cute little fuzzy froggy boy. And he is beautiful in all his glory. Look at him, he's so stunning. Let's see though what he looks like with some clothes on. But also, don't forget to do the dynamics thing like we did before. Set the rest mix to 100 and 100 on the new hair as well. Let's name these also. White hairs, green hairs. I can't spell. We can turn off this crop. Let's turn his clothing back on. Magical. And guys, I think we're almost there. We're almost done. So, for whatever reason, I had this in my last one. You may notice this too. Some of the hairs are clipping through, but also in my last one, I had weirdness where you could see the body parts as well. And to fix that, we just need to add some cloth surface thickness to our clothing alembic. So just add a cloth surface, drag your clothing in there. We can turn off subdivisions, but let's take this thickness up maybe 1 centimeter. Again, make sure we add our redshift object tag, turn on geometry override and on tessellation. Oh, and also check on bulging. That was the thing I had on. So it's going to be way too much now. I think let's take this back down to 0.6. Yeah, his sweater should not be that big. Or maybe 0.3 is what I had mine at, maybe. Yeah, that seems right. Let's up our dome lighting a bit to like 1. Let's move the camera to a better spot. Angle it a little. Make sure also that you find a pose that you like. And let's add some blur just to be fun. So turn on our bokeh. Let's do 6. Use our little selector here. Click his face. Let that load. And voila. Froggy boy has some fur and a nice little sweater to keep him toasty warm. So that's really how I made my frog character in my last Instagram post. Hopefully I didn't forget anything, and hopefully this was helpful and like you guys could actually learn what I did to make him. There's a lot involved, tons of steps. I know it's pretty tedious at parts, but it's super worth it. Like the UV stuff is so worth it with this knit texture particularly, to get right. So highly recommend. It's nice that there's AI out there now that can kind of help us generate models, so we can have some fun characters. And I always love using Mixamo to kind of add some animation when I'm super bad at rigging. So yeah, super thankful for resources out there for artists. And I hope you guys had a ton of fun learning how to make your own little froggy characters. If you stuck around, thank you. Also, I hope you had fun. I hope you learned something. Yeah, we got a lot of exciting stuff coming. Okay, there's a lot of fun coming. Stick around. Subscribe if you are really crazy. I'll love you for it. Yeah, I don't know. I'm in a goofy mood today, but I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.